Before you dismiss what you are feeling as imagination, coincidence, or another passing emotional wave, pay attention. There are rare moments when the sky arranges itself in a way that reaches directly into the deepest layers of human experience, and what is unfolding right now belongs to that category. Most people will move through these days completely unaware that a doorway has appeared before them. They will continue with their routines, distracted by ordinary concerns, never realizing how close they came to a life-changing encounter, a profound emotional awakening, or a connection capable of altering their entire direction. But if you have found yourself here, listening to these words, there is a reason. Something far larger than chance is moving beneath the surface of your life. On June 16th, Venus forms an exact trine with Neptune, linking the fiery realms of Leo and Aries in a configuration astrologers have long associated with soulmate energy. This is not being described as symbolism alone. Within astrological tradition, alignments of this magnitude create a temporary energetic passageway, a unique opening through which relationships, emotional revelations, and long-awaited connections can emerge into physical reality. It is as if a bridge suddenly appears between what has only existed as longing and what is finally ready to take shape. Yet there is a critical detail that many people overlook. This opening does not exist in isolation. It is positioned between two other major planetary developments, creating an energetic sequence that amplifies everything it touches. Without understanding the larger picture surrounding this portal, what begins as one of the most beautiful and meaningful experiences of the year could easily feel overwhelming, confusing, or impossible to interpret. That is why so many people may misread what is happening to them over the coming days. They will feel the energy without understanding its source. They will sense the shift without recognizing its purpose. And perhaps that describes what has already been happening inside you. Maybe there has been a strange sensation living quietly in your chest. Not sadness, not loneliness, not even longing in the ordinary sense. Something deeper than that. A feeling that seems to sit beneath language itself. An emotional pull that refuses to explain where it came from or where it is leading. If that sounds familiar, there is a reason. And understanding that reason changes everything. To grasp why this week carries such extraordinary weight, you first need to see the larger astrological landscape. What is happening is not simply an important week for romance. It is connected to one of the rarest celestial arrangements of our era. At this very moment, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, three of the slowest and most influential planetary forces in astrology, have all entered new signs, not separately over distant periods of time, but within the same historical window. This type of transition unfolds only about once every 500 years. The last time energies of similar magnitude were present, humanity was living through an entirely different chapter of civilization. Under these cycles, societies transformed, belief systems evolved, and collective realities shifted in ways people could never have predicted beforehand. Uranus now moves through Gemini, reshaping communication, thought patterns, learning, and the ways people connect with one another. Pluto continues its journey through Aquarius, dismantling outdated structures of power while laying foundations for entirely new forms of collective experience. Neptune entered Aries back in January, and that transition alone created a profound energetic ripple throughout the collective consciousness. Together, these three planets have formed what astrologers call a minor grand trine, a powerful triangular pattern in the sky that has quietly influenced life for months. Whether you recognized it or not, you have likely felt its presence. It appears as the growing sensation that everything is accelerating, that old certainties are dissolving faster than expected, that life seems to be moving towards something significant, even when you cannot identify exactly what it is. There has been a persistent feeling that reality itself is preparing for change. Today, Venus enters directly into that larger geometry. She becomes the activating force within the pattern. She serves as the personal key that unlocks the deeper potential hidden inside this once-in-500-year arrangement. And rather than directing that energy toward institutions, politics, or society, she channels it toward the most intimate territory imaginable, the human heart. This is why June 16th stands apart from ordinary romantic transits. Venus is not simply creating pleasant emotions or encouraging affection. She is connecting personal experience to a massive generational transformation in the way love, connection, and emotional truth are expressed. The result can feel astonishingly powerful. Suddenly, feelings emerge that seem larger than logic. Encounters carry unusual significance. Memories rise without warning. Long-buried desires surface demanding attention. And that unexplained sensation in your chest begins to make sense. The story actually started several days ago. On June 13th, Venus entered Leo. The moment that shift occurred, something subtle began changing within you. Perhaps it happened beneath conscious awareness. Perhaps you could not identify it at first, yet your emotional system responded immediately. Deep inside, a new desire awakened, not merely a wish for romance, not simply a need for attention or affection. What emerged was a craving for authenticity, for a love that truly recognizes who you are beneath every role, every defense, and every mask. You began yearning for a connection that feels familiar in a way words cannot fully describe. A bond that resembles returning home to a forgotten version of yourself. Since then, strange things may have happened. A person from the distant past may have crossed your mind without explanation. A familiar song may have carried an emotional weight it never held before. A memory may have surfaced unexpectedly. Perhaps there was even a moment when you caught your reflection and felt briefly disconnected from the image staring back. Not because your appearance had changed, but because your inner reality was shifting faster than your conscious mind could process. This is the influence of Venus moving through Leo. Leo is governed by the sun. It speaks to the heart, identity, creative expression, and the core essence that makes you uniquely yourself. And as this energy continues building toward its peak, what comes next may reveal why your heart has been preparing for this moment all along. What makes this period so extraordinary is that the energy moving through your life is no longer asking for compromise. It is no longer whispering gentle suggestions from the background of your awareness. Instead, it is calling you toward a completely different relationship with love itself. As Venus continues her journey through Leo, she amplifies a powerful message within the heart. This is not the energy of chasing validation or begging to be chosen. It is the realization that genuine love must meet you at the level of your worth. Venus in Leo carries a regal quality. She awakens the part of you that understands your value and refuses to diminish itself for acceptance. Deep down, you begin recognizing that settling for half-hearted connections, inconsistent affection, or relationships that require you to abandon your authentic self is no longer an option. There is a growing certainty that what belongs in your life must honor who you truly are. And this inner shift becomes even more significant because Venus is now extending her influence across the heavens toward Neptune in Aries. Neptune governs spiritual connection, transcendence, intuition, and the invisible dimensions of love that cannot be measured by logic alone. It represents the force capable of dissolving boundaries that once appeared permanent. Every emotional wall you constructed after disappointment, every layer of protection built from heartbreak, every defense mechanism developed to avoid being hurt again. Neptune touches all of them. As Venus and Neptune move into perfect harmony tonight, those barriers are not simply weakened, they begin to melt away. This is why the emotions you've been carrying recently may feel so difficult to explain. That persistent sensation in your chest, the one that seems to exist beyond ordinary sadness or longing, is connected to something much deeper. Your soul has already sensed this alignment approaching. Long before your conscious mind understood what was happening, another part of you was preparing. The heart often recognizes change before the intellect can name it. And now, as these energies converge, you stand on the threshold of a moment capable of altering the way you experience connection itself. Yet before that doorway fully opens, another force must do its work. Before profound recognition arrives, something outdated must be disrupted. Before the portal reveals what is possible, a clearing process takes place. That process is unfolding now. At this very moment, Venus is forming a sextile with Uranus in Gemini. Uranus is unlike any other planetary influence. It does not ask permission. It does not arrive gradually. It is associated with awakening, surprise, disruption, and sudden breakthroughs that arrive without warning. In Gemini, the sign connected to communication, information, conversations, and unexpected encounters, Uranus becomes especially dynamic. The energy is unpredictable, fast-moving, and impossible to fully anticipate. This means that today may bring an event that completely shifts your perspective. Perhaps a message appears from someone you never expected to hear from again. Perhaps an ordinary conversation suddenly reveals a truth that changes everything. Maybe a brief interaction with a stranger lingers in your thoughts far longer than it should. Or perhaps the most significant event takes place entirely within your own awareness. You may experience a realization that arrives like lightning, a moment when you suddenly understand what your heart truly wants, a moment when you recognize what you have been tolerating despite knowing you deserve more, a moment when it becomes impossible to ignore what must be released before something new can enter your life. This is the role Uranus is playing. It serves as the catalyst. Uranus specializes in breaking cycles. It exposes unconscious patterns and interrupts routines that have quietly controlled your life. Sometimes, these patterns are so familiar that you do not even realize they exist until they are shattered. And that is precisely what this energy is accomplishing now. There is a purpose behind every unexpected development occurring around this alignment. The Soulmate portal cannot function through closed doors. It cannot fully reach someone who remains guarded behind years of disappointment, fear, and emotional armor. If the heart is surrounded by walls built from past experiences, recognition becomes difficult. Openness becomes impossible. Uranus understands this. Its mission is to clear away whatever stands between you and the next chapter that is attempting to arrive. It removes obstacles. It dismantles resistance. It creates space. This is why the energy of today may feel unusually intense. If situations appear chaotic, if emotions seem heightened, if unexpected developments leave you feeling unsettled or electrically alive, do not assume something is wrong. These experiences are not necessarily signs of disruption for its own sake. They are part of a preparation process. They're creating the conditions necessary for what comes next. Because in less than 24 hours, the energy shifts dramatically. The portal opens. June 16th marks the moment when Venus reaches 4 degrees of Leo and forms an exact 120-degree trine with Neptune at 4 degrees of Aries. This is the alignment everything has been building toward. Within astrology, a trine represents the smoothest and most harmonious relationship two planets can share. There is no struggle involved, no friction demanding resolution, no tension requiring effort. The energy flows naturally, like a river moving effortlessly toward its destination. And when that current exists between Venus and Neptune, the results can feel almost otherworldly. Venus governs attraction, beauty, affection, desire, and the experiences that bring warmth to the heart. Neptune governs spiritual awakening, intuition, soul-level recognition, and forms of love that extend beyond ordinary reality. When these forces unite in perfect harmony, the atmosphere changes. Something subtle but profound begins moving through human experience. Emotional barriers become thinner. Protective masks lose their grip. The stories people tell themselves about who they must be start falling away. For a brief but powerful window, it becomes easier to perceive the truth beneath appearances. You become capable of seeing another person beyond their image, beyond their role, beyond the personality they present to the world. You begin sensing the essence underneath. Even more importantly, others may be able to see you in exactly the same way. This is the deeper meaning behind the term soulmate portal. It does not guarantee that someone will magically appear from nowhere. It is not about fantasy. It is about energetic alignment. Your frequency is being adjusted to resonate with connections that reflect who you are becoming rather than who you used to be. For some individuals, this may manifest through a new encounter. If that happens, the experience may feel strangely familiar from the very beginning. Instead of feeling like the introduction of a stranger, it may feel like remembering someone you've known forever. There can be an immediate sense of recognition that bypasses logic entirely. A feeling that something inside you has finally relaxed after years of waiting. For others, the portal will reveal itself within a relationship that already exists. Long-standing frustrations may suddenly lose their importance. Resentments that once felt immovable may begin dissolving. The invisible barriers created by misunderstandings and accumulated disappointments may no longer seem as powerful as they once did. You may look at the person beside you and, for the first time in a very long while, see beyond every conflict, every disagreement, and every layer of emotional noise. And in that moment, something essential returns to your awareness. You remember what brought your souls together in the first place, and that remembrance is where the next chapter begins. For many of you, the most surprising part of this portal will not be the arrival of another person. It will be the emotional breakthrough that arrives from within. There is a powerful possibility that during this window, a wave of understanding rises so suddenly and so completely that it catches you off guard. You may find yourself overwhelmed by emotion for reasons you cannot immediately explain. A memory surfaces. A realization lands. A truth reaches your heart that your mind has been resisting for years, and before you know it, tears appear without warning. Not because something is wrong, but because something inside you is finally being released. The compassion available through this Venus and Neptune alignment reaches far beyond romantic love. In many cases, it turns inward. It directs its healing force toward the relationship you have carried with yourself through every chapter of your life. You may suddenly see your past from a completely different perspective. The version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. The version that remained in situations long after they stopped serving your growth. The version that loved deeply, even when that love was never fully returned. Instead of judging that person, you begin to understand them. Instead of criticizing your past decisions, you recognize the innocence behind them. You realize that you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. Neptune brings a cleansing quality to this experience. It does not erase the past. It does not pretend mistakes never happened. Rather, it dissolves the emotional chains that have kept you attached to those experiences. The weight begins to lift. The guilt softens. The self-criticism loses its grip. And for the first time in a long while, you may feel free to move forward without carrying old stories on your shoulders. This is the highest expression of the portal. This is the emotional and spiritual summit of the month. Yet as beautiful as this moment may be, it is only part of the story. What follows immediately afterward carries equal importance. In fact, the events of the following day will determine whether this powerful opening becomes a lasting transformation or simply a fleeting memory. That is why your attention is needed now more than ever. Because less than 17 hours after the soulmate portal reaches its strongest point, The energy changes dramatically. On June 17th, Venus moves into an exact opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. And this is where everything becomes serious. Many people focus on the inspiration of the portal while completely overlooking what comes next. But the truth is that the portal alone is not the full experience. It is only the invitation. Pluto represents the response. If Neptune opens the dream, Pluto asks whether that dream can survive contact with reality. Pluto is not interested in fantasy. It has no concern for wishful thinking, emotional projections, or beautiful illusions. Pluto seeks one thing, above all else, truth. Absolute truth. The kind of truth that exists beneath appearances, beneath stories, beneath hopes and fears. When Venus opposes Pluto on June 17th, every insight, every connection, every emotional breakthrough experienced during the portal enters a period of examination. Nothing remains untouched. Everything is evaluated. Everything is tested. In practical terms, this may manifest in surprising ways. Perhaps the connection that felt magical during the portal suddenly triggers uncertainty. A fear you thought you had outgrown reappears. An old emotional wound resurfaces with unexpected intensity. Feelings of jealousy emerge. Possessiveness makes itself known. The fear of abandonment rises from the shadows. Or perhaps an instinctive urge appears to withdraw, to create distance, to protect yourself before someone has the opportunity to hurt you. If these experiences arise, understand that they are not signs that something has gone wrong. They are part of the process itself. The universe is not punishing you. It is revealing what remains unresolved. There is a reason for this. Deep and meaningful connections are not sustained by love alone. They require honesty. They require emotional courage. They require the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Pluto understands this better than any planetary force in astrology. It demands authenticity, regardless of the cost. That is why this opposition serves as a gateway rather than a threat. If what emerged during the portal was genuine, if the connection was rooted in reality rather than fantasy, if the self-acceptance was sincere, if the forgiveness reached the deepest layers of your being, then Pluto will not tear it apart. Instead, Pluto will strengthen it. What began as an emotional revelation becomes something solid. What felt spiritual becomes embodied. What seemed beautiful in theory becomes powerful in practice. Pluto takes inspiration and transforms it into permanence. It anchors truth where it cannot easily be shaken. However, if the portal exposed desires based more on imagination than reality, if you found yourself attached to a fantasy version of someone rather than who they truly are, if spiritual language became a substitute for difficult emotional work, Pluto will reveal that quickly. The exposure may feel intense, it may feel uncomfortable, yet even then the purpose remains the same. Pluto is not trying to punish. Pluto is trying to liberate. Anything built on illusion must be cleared away so that something authentic can take its place. This is why the real lesson of the Soulmate portal is not simply opening your heart. Many people can do that for a moment. The deeper challenge is remaining open when vulnerability becomes uncomfortable. Remaining open when fears appear. Remaining open when uncertainty enters the conversation. Remaining open when the fantasy fades and reality steps forward. That is where transformation happens. And those who embrace that challenge will leave this period profoundly changed. By the time this sequence of events is complete, something fundamental inside you will no longer operate the same way. Your internal guidance system is already being recalibrated. You may have noticed subtle signs of this over recent days. The way you evaluate opportunities feels different. The people you once felt drawn toward may no longer hold the same influence. Priorities that once consumed your attention seem strangely empty. Meanwhile, new desires, new possibilities, and new directions are pulling at you with increasing strength. This shift is one of Neptune's most powerful gifts. Neptune does not simply alter external circumstances. It changes perception itself. It changes emotional awareness. It changes the lens through which you experience reality. As a result, your intuition has likely become far more active than usual. You may find yourself sensing things before they occur, understanding someone's emotional state before they speak, feeling inexplicably drawn towards certain conversations, decisions, locations, or opportunities. Logic may struggle to explain these impulses, yet they continue appearing. This is not something to dismiss. It is not something to argue with. It is not something to explain away. During this period, intuition functions as more than a vague impression. It becomes a form of guidance, a signal pointing toward alignment. The fire trine connecting Leo and Aries amplifies this effect significantly. This is not passive intuition. This is not dreamy speculation. This energy carries urgency. It carries momentum. It feels like an inner knowing that refuses to remain silent. It is the sensation that a deeper part of yourself already understands the direction you are meant to move, even if the path has not fully revealed itself yet. Again and again, you may feel nudged toward specific choices. Again and again, life may place signs directly in front of you. The real question is not whether the guidance exists. The question is whether you will trust it enough to follow where it leads. Because what is unfolding during this extraordinary week does not conclude when the portal closes. In many ways, the portal itself is only the beginning of a much larger chapter that continues shaping the rest of 2026. What makes this week so important is not simply what happens during the portal itself. The real significance lies in what continues unfolding long after the exact alignment has passed. Many people assume that powerful astrological events begin and end within a single day, but that is rarely how transformation works. The strongest shifts send waves through your life that continue expanding outward for months, sometimes even years. What you're experiencing now is one of those moments. The choices you make, the realizations you receive, and the emotional truths that emerge during this period are not isolated experiences. They are the opening chapter of a much larger story that will continue shaping the remainder of 2026. The reason becomes clearer when you look at what follows. Just 3 days after the portal reaches its peak, another major transition arrives. On June 19th, Chiron, often known as the wounded healer, moves into Taurus. This shift carries enormous significance on its own. Chiron's journey through Taurus begins a long process focused on healing humanity's relationship with self-worth, physical embodiment, security, and the deeply rooted beliefs people carry about what they deserve to receive. The timing of this movement is anything but accidental. Consider the sequence. First comes the Venus-Neptune portal, offering an experience connected to transcendent love, spiritual recognition, emotional awakening, and the possibility of profound connection. Then Chiron enters Taurus and asks a direct question. Can you truly receive what you have been shown? Can you allow that experience to exist, not merely as inspiration, but as reality? Can you embody it? Can you believe in your own value deeply enough to welcome it into your everyday life? This is where many people encounter resistance. It is one thing to dream of love. It is another thing entirely to believe you are worthy of it. Chiron in Taurus begins exposing every hidden wound connected to that issue. Every doubt about your value, every belief that says you must earn affection through sacrifice, every story that suggests happiness belongs to someone else but not to you. Those patterns begin rising to the surface because they are ready to be healed. The universe is effectively saying that the portal revealed what is possible. Now it is time to anchor that possibility into the physical world. It is time to stop treating love, abundance, connection, and self-acceptance as distant ideals and begin recognizing them as experiences you deserve to have. Then, another turning point arrives. On June 21st, the summer solstice takes place as the Sun enters Cancer. This marks the longest day of the year and serves as a powerful threshold within the astrological calendar. The atmosphere begins changing. The intense, fiery momentum that characterized the middle of June gradually softens. Energy that was pushing outward now begins moving inward. Reflection replaces urgency. Emotional depth replaces excitement. The solstice acts almost like a guardian standing at the doorway of the next phase, asking you to protect whatever truth was revealed during the portal. If a meaningful connection emerged, nurture it. If an important realization surfaced, honor it. If your heart finally acknowledged something it has been trying to tell you for years, do not abandon that truth once daily life resumes. Cancer energy teaches preservation. It teaches emotional stewardship. It reminds you that the most precious discoveries require care if they are to grow. And then the next chapter unfolds. On June 29th, Mercury stations retrograde in Cancer. The moment this happens, the themes of the portal return for review. Conversations resurface in memory. Emotional exchanges take on new meaning. Insights that seemed confusing at first begin making sense. Mercury retrograde is frequently misunderstood. Many people treat it as a period of disruption, but in reality, its deeper purpose is reflection and integration. It slows the pace, so understanding can catch up with experience. During the portal, events may move too quickly for complete comprehension. Feelings emerge rapidly. Encounters carry unusual intensity. Decisions happen in real time. Mercury retrograde creates space to revisit those experiences with greater awareness. It offers an opportunity to understand what actually happened beneath the surface. Looking at the entire month as a whole reveals something remarkable. There is a clear sequence unfolding. First comes the awakening, then the portal, then the test through Pluto, then the grounding through Chiron, then the nurturing influence of the solstice. Finally comes the review and integration through Mercury retrograde. This is not random cosmic activity. It functions almost like a carefully designed spiritual curriculum. Each stage builds upon the previous one. Each event prepares you for the next. Together, they create a process of transformation uniquely suited to this particular moment in your life. Yet there is another aspect of this journey that many people fail to anticipate. Before new blessings arrive, space often has to be created for them. Before a gift can be received, something outdated may need to leave. This can feel unsettling at first. Relationships that no longer resonate with your evolving sense of self may become impossible to ignore. Friendships that have been quietly drifting apart could finally reach their natural conclusion. Partnerships sustained more by routine than genuine connection may encounter a moment of truth. If this occurs, it is important to understand what is really happening. These experiences are not necessarily losses. They are acts of clearing. The Soulmate portal cannot fully deliver new possibilities while old energies continue occupying the space where those possibilities are meant to enter. Sometimes release is part of preparation. Sometimes endings are evidence that something more aligned is attempting to arrive. For some of you, this week may bring unexpected closures. Doors that seemed permanent may suddenly swing shut. Connections that felt familiar may begin fading. If that happens, resist the temptation to force what is already leaving. Do not cling to what your soul has quietly outgrown. Do not chase what is moving away. Do not convince yourself that holding tighter will change the outcome. Trust that temporary discomfort often serves a larger purpose. The clearing process does not last forever, and once space has been created, life has a remarkable way of filling it with what genuinely belongs there. Perhaps the most important thing for you to understand right now is this. There is a reason these words found you. Out of countless people moving through this exact period, something caused you to remain present for this message. Something held your attention. Something resonated before logic could explain why. That response matters. The same inner pull that encouraged you to keep listening is connected to the energy moving through this portal. It is the voice of your deeper awareness. It is the internal compass that recognizes significance before the conscious mind catches up. Many individuals will pass through this week without recognizing what is happening. They may feel unusually emotional. They may experience vivid dreams. They may notice restlessness, inspiration, or unexplained longing. Yet they will dismiss those experiences as random fluctuations and continue on without exploring them further. The opportunity will pass unnoticed. But if you're still here, then something inside you has already begun paying attention. You can feel that something meaningful is unfolding, even if you cannot yet define it completely. That awareness matters because it means you are prepared to work with the energy instead of sleeping through it. So as tonight's trine reaches perfection, create a moment of stillness for yourself. Step away from distraction. Close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart. Then ask a single question with complete honesty. What do I truly want? Not what seems practical, not what appears safest, not what other people expect from you. Ask what your soul genuinely longs for. Ask what desire continues returning, no matter how many times you try to ignore it. Ask what truth lives beneath every compromise you have ever made. Whatever answer rises during that moment deserves your attention. Because during this portal, that answer may reveal more than a wish. It may reveal a direction. It may reveal the next chapter of your journey. It may reveal the truth your heart has been trying to communicate all along. The portal opens today. The invitation has been extended. The energy is available. The only remaining question is whether you are willing to welcome what is trying to enter your life. And before we close, thank you for sharing this time and energy with me. If this message resonated with you and you would like to continue exploring future insights together, consider subscribing and becoming part of this growing community. I would also love to hear your experiences, reflections, and thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective may inspire someone else who is navigating the same journey. Until our paths cross again, take care of yourself. Stay open to what is unfolding, and join us again for more meaningful conversations and discoveries ahead.